Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie, this is The Way. This will be my full Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 2 video. There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships too. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know in the comments, what do you think that Mando is going to bring back from the living waters here to prove that he entered them to the armor? First guess would be something to do with the Mythosaur. But careful for spoilers for the episode. If you haven't seen it yet, we'll start at the beginning, work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs and WTF moments as we go along, starting with the episode title, The Mines of Mandalore, which is a reference to them literally entering the mines of Mandalore. It was a great episode, but obviously it feels a lot like a part one of a two-part episode because they end on a bit of a cliffhanger, like holy crap, boom, slam to credits. You probably noticed that Kylo Ren's helmet wasn't in the intro like they show all the different helmets. For some reason they took him out, I don't know why. The actual opening scene opens with the fireworks on Mos Eisley. During a speeder race, they claim that it's the Boonta Eve celebration. And remember, that's a big reference to Phantom Menace, the Boonta Eve pod races that Anakin raced in that were put on by Jabba. Like they're having Fast and Furious style drag races with land speeders through the streets of Mos Eisley. Pelimato seems like she's trying to bilk this Rodian out of more money in exchange for fixing his land speeder, which seems like the same model as Luke Skywalker's land speeder, except it's blue instead of Luke Skywalker's color. When she references the mid-rim, that's this part of the galaxy closer in, the series has largely taken place in the outer rim during Season 1 and Season 2. But we will be going back to Coruscant later in The Mandalorian Season 3, and that's part of the core world, so we'll just be visiting different parts of the galaxy, and during the Ahsoka series as well. That will also visit other parts of the galaxy, and the Skeleton Crew series, which is also connected to The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. They're starting to use a lot of these spin-off series to visit very different parts of the galaxy, just because it is a very big Star Wars galaxy, so why would you keep going back to the exact same place every time? There were people complaining about that during Book of Boba Fett, like, why are we spending so much time on Tatooine? You notice she's got all the same droids there from earlier episodes, previous seasons, like she's got the pit droids helping her, which are also from Phantom Menace. She's also got the R5 droid, which has been there in previous episodes as well, which she pawns off on Mando. We see the grift that she's running with the Jawas, like, oh, quick, bring part of that engine back in, we'll put it back on. Then Mando arrives with Grogu, who uses the Force to flip out of the cockpit, just like Yoda in Attack of the Clones, into her arms. We also saw Grogu using the Force to be more nimble like that, jumping around during the Book of Boba Fett when he was training with Luke Skywalker at his Jedi Academy. It's one of the many points in the episode where they show you some of his newer, more powerful Jedi abilities. Even Bo Katan later asks him, like, how powerful are you now? Just to remind you that he has gotten more powerful. When she mentions the Chance Cube, that's another big Phantom Menace Easter egg, and an Easter egg for the Millennium Falcon and Han Solo, but more so a Phantom Menace reference when Qui-Gon Jinn influenced the outcome of the die that they rolled to see what would happen to Anakin if he won the pod race. But it's also the same type of dice that Han Solo has hanging up in the Millennium Falcon. Mando asks her about the missing IG-11 memory circuit. She says that they don't have them. She tries to pawn off the R5 unit on him, which he does wind up using. When she smacks it and causes a bunch more parts to fall off and it breaks a little bit more, that's another reference to A New Hope when the R5 unit in that movie, it's not meant to be the same R5 unit, it's just another random R5 unit, but it is a reference to that moment. You also see her DB-1 droid, which is the same type that Cal Kestis had during Jedi Fallen Order. He also has that in the new game too, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but it's not meant to be the exact same model, it's just another type of that model. There was another Boba Fett reference too when Pelimato asked Mando, did you come to deal with Boba Fett? Are the Hutts back? Making it seem like they actually will introduce the Hutts in a bigger way, either in future episodes or in future other series like the Ahsoka series. At some point, we'll see the Hutts again though. And also, Boba Fett has been rumored to guest star during The Mandalorian Season 3. I do believe he will be in one of the episodes. When they fly away, she says, may the Force be with you, just another reference to Grogu, the Force in general. People wondering if Mando is also Force sensitive too, because of the way he's wielding the Darksaber. We'll see about that. They haven't said he's not Force sensitive, but they also haven't alluded to him being Force sensitive yet. I think because so much of the attention when it comes to the Force and Jedi training has been on Grogu himself. Like they'll focus on that in the short term, but maybe long term we will find out that Mando has some Force sensitivity. You don't actually need to be Force sensitive to wield most lightsabers. Most of them can be activated by regular people, but there are some activating mechanisms on some types of lightsabers that Jedi build that can only be activated using the Force. When they fly away, there's more fireworks going off in the background, which is another reference to the fireworks that go off during the Boonta Eve pod race in Phantom Menace, and at the end of Return of the Jedi, there are fireworks on a lot of the different planets in that ending scene. They arrive at the planet Mandalore, and he calls it the homeworld of their people, and the way he says it is almost like he's including Grogu as part of their people too, like it's our homeworld, like the royal we. There's been a lot of Easter eggs and references, speculation in the past that Grogu will eventually become a Mandalorian too. Like the whole title of the series, The Mandalorian, is a reference to Grogu as much as it is to Mando himself. Like Grogu will become the next Mandalorian Jedi. The Songs of Mandalore that he talks about is an Old Republic reference before the Mandalorian Jedi Wars and the time of Mandalore the Great, like a long time ago, many thousands of years. There are several references to Mandalore the Great in the episode too. He mentions the Beskar mines, setting up the title of the episode, them going down to the actual mines themselves. He also reveals that it's his first time visiting the planet too, which is a bit of a surprise, but he explains his backstory too. He was raised on the moon Concordia because that's where his group, the Armor's group, the Watch, had been exiled to many, many years ago. That's why he hadn't visited the planet before, because his group had been exiled. Which is another reference to the warring factions that Bo Katan talks about later in the episode that weakened their people and left them susceptible to the Great Purge and the Empire's revenge against them. He points out the Kalevala planet that they just visited Bo Katan on. It's meant to be the ancestral homeworld of House Kryze, so like her ancestors built the castle that she's now ruling in. She just happens to be the head of their house right now. She makes several references to the rest of her family, which we saw some of during the Clone Wars, so there were a lot of Clone Wars references in the episode. When he tells Grogu a Mandalorian has to understand maps and know their way around the galaxy so you'll never be lost, he's slowly teaching Grogu how to become a Mandalorian, like teaching him the ways of their people so that Grogu is slowly becoming a Mandalorian. There's so much damage from the Empire's bombing of Mandalore that you can actually see it from space, like that green crystalline structure. You could see that from outer space. That's why the planet looks so green like this. He also explains that the Empire's damage during the Great Purge disrupted the magnetic field around the planet, which blocks all transmissions to and from the planet, which is why Grogu later has to leave the planet physically to go get help from Bo Katan. He can't just radio her for help. You see a little bit of the wreckage when he arrives, but they save some of the wide shots for when Bo Katan comes back with Grogu. R5 winds up going on a scouting mission and goes full red shirt, even though that's a Star Trek reference, like the first to get into trouble on an away mission with the Alamites, which are the creatures that used to live much further away from the Mandalorian cities, but in the absence of all the regular people, they started inhabiting the caves underneath the wreckage of the city. As far as I could tell, they're brand new creatures that weren't in the canon before, so they're like brand new for the series. Him pressurizing his helmet is also a way to show you how he can survive in the vacuum of space in his armor. Like, they will protect them like Bo Katan's armor, all Mandalorian armor, for at least a small period of time. It's not as good as an actual spacesuit or an actual diving suit, for instance, when they go underwater, but it will protect them in environments like that for at least a little while. He sees the underground ruins of Sundari. It's part of this city, the main capital city of Mandalore that we saw all the time during the Clone Wars. This is what it looked like. Like, the area that he's looking at is the area that you see Obi-Wan traveling through right here. We get our first big action scene of the episode with Mando versus the Alamites using the Darksaber. It's the first time he's used it during Season 3. He's still not that great with it and is still very heavy in his hands. He winds up using a vibroblade knife to stab one of them. He's used it before in the series. The reason why the Darksaber is still heavy in his hands, as the armor explains, is because it's part of the metaphorical baggage, like the psychological baggage that he's carrying with him, his fears, his doubts, weighing him down metaphorically, but because we're talking about the Force here, it's weighing him down physically as well. It's kind of a Thor's hammer, worthiness, enchantment kind of thing. Like, the more he believes in himself, the more sure of himself he is, the more able fighter he will become when he's wielding it. The reason later in the episode why Bo Katan is so good with the Darksaber is because she knows exactly what she wants to do. Like, she's very sure of herself with it. There are no doubts in her mind when she's attacking this other creature with it. So I think part of the idea is that Mando, when he's wielding it here, still doubts himself. He doesn't really think of himself as a leader, and that will be part of his arc during the season. Because during the episode, there are a lot of references paralleling him and the original Mandalore, the original leader of their people, like he will eventually unite all of their people using the Darksaber and Grogu. So eventually he's going to have to believe in himself that he is capable of being a leader. When he discovers the air is breathable after all, and Mandalore isn't cursed, it's meant to be this reference to all the legends about the planet not being totally true. Like, Bo Katan's Mandalorians have all these beliefs about their customs, their culture, everything about the planet, and the armor has all these different beliefs and these different customs. And each side is meant to be partially correct, but partially wrong in some of their beliefs. So the air being breathable was an example of the armorer being wrong about the planet Mandalore. She's the one that told Mando that the planet was cursed. She also believed that redemption for him was not possible, which he's like, no, I'm gonna go and try anyway. So now we know that the armor isn't the end-all, be-all of all things Mandalorian. When they use their jetpack and thrusters on Grogu's pod to lower into the Civic Center and go into the tunnels, the area they enter here is the same area that Ahsoka fought Darth Maul in during the end of the Clone Wars when he won the Darksaber from Pre-Vizsla. The creatures they pass, the little reptile ones with wings, seem kind of like they're based on shrills, which are from the canon, but they're like more hardcore version of reptiles. I think some of these are original creations though, like they tuned them up for the series. The area that they go into next is the Forge area where the Beskar was smelted and turned into weapons and armor. You see a lot of debris, a lot of pieces of armor, Mandalorian armor, and some Stormtrooper armor fragments as well too. Like it's meant to be the site of a lot of battles that were fought because remember, the Empire raided the area and bombed it to hell a long time ago. When he digs the Mandalorian helmet out of the rubble here, the Mandalorian theme music plays, but it winds up being a trap laid by a Mandalorian spider droid that takes him past a bunch more Mandalorian armor that looks like this creature here has assembled. It looks familiar, but I think this creature is meant to be an Easter egg for something like General Grievous during the prequels, because it's also using a stun rod just like General Grievous's men during the Clone Wars. A lot of its body is also very modular too, kind of like General Grievous, like most of his body had been replaced by cybernetics. The sounds he makes also sound a little bit like the sounds that General Grievous made too. But it's not meant to be actual General Grievous. When he gets put on the spit roast, they also use this as a bit of a Grogu rescue scene, like can Grogu use the Force? Is he powerful enough to rescue Mando? Turns out not quite yet. On Mando's orders, he then takes off to use Mando's ship to go get Bo Katan's help, surprising her. It was a great moment too, like I'm gonna go tell this Mando guy to get out of here, and all of a sudden Grogu pops up in the cockpit. She seems pleasantly surprised by him, like she's impressed by his skill, like, oh wow, you're pretty good. And takes them in her Mandalorian starfighter, which we saw during Mandalorian Season 2, back to the planet to help him. Her face displays the entire spectrum of emotions as they enter the atmosphere, like she's a little bit excited, but then she sees the wreckage of the dome city of Sundari, which she used to live at. She used to rule Mandalore from there, and gets kind of wistful. She keeps talking to Grogu as they travel through the wreckage. Oh, it didn't used to be like this, referencing the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels when it looked amazing. You remember, she basically lived her entire life here, which she talks to Mando about like when she was a little girl as well. Growing up as part of the royal family, unlike Mando, who had never visited the planet before. So this is old hat for her. Like, oh, I used to walk around here all over the place. When she says her family ruled it all, that's a reference to her sister, Dutchess Satine Kryze, who I've talked about in previous videos. I don't know if we'll ever see her in a flashback. Hopefully they'll find some references to her in a future Obi-Wan Kenobi series or something like that, or at least through Bo Katan's character. She also references her father later in the episode too, who we've never actually seen in Star Wars before. They never even referenced him, I believe, on the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, so I think this episode was the first time that Star Wars ever referenced Bo Katan and Satine's father. It's also a reminder that she ruled the Mandalorians with the Darksaber, which she wields later in the episode, back before the Great Purge. It was after the events of Star Wars Rebels, but during the events of the original trilogy when that happened. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references for the Clone Wars and Rebels. When she says she knew quite a few Jedi, she's referencing pretty much all the major Jedi characters from the prequels, from the Clone Wars and Rebels. Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka, Ezra Bridger, and more importantly, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and other members from the Council and other lesser Jedi. Like she met Jedi all the time. The galaxy was lousy with the Jedi during the Clone Wars. When she says there was a time they got on quite well together, that's a reference to the Clone Wars when they helped them liberate Mandalore from Darth Maul, the Crimson Dawn Syndicate, and on the bad side of that too, it's also a reference back to the Mandalorian Jedi Wars from thousands of years ago, like there was a time when we didn't get on very well with the Jedi. A lot of people have also started thinking about this too, the whole idea that Grogu is probably going to be the next Mandalorian Jedi and be the union of those two concepts, like the whole concept of being a Mandalorian and the whole concept of the Jedi. We used to be at war with the Jedi, then we fought with them, and now there is another Mandalorian Jedi. It's just that Grogu hasn't become a Jedi yet, and he hasn't taken the creed yet, so technically he's not officially a Mandalorian yet. You can let me know in the comments when you think that's going to wind up happening, because Mando and Bo Katan both re-entered the water, sort of re-christened themselves in the traditional style of Mandalorians, taking the creed again. How long is it going to be before Grogu takes the creed? You also notice the way that Bo Katan starts talking to Grogu. She seems like she's being quite nice to him, unlike her more acrimonious sounding conversations with Mando. But maybe that's just her version of foreplay. It definitely feels like they're trying to start some kind of thing between Mando and Bo Katan, like maybe long term they'll wind up getting together. They just have this crazy chemistry between the two of them. And yes, if they did actually get together, Mando would be able to take his helmet off when they got it on. Like, Mandalorians don't get it on with their helmets on. Maybe they do if they're in battle. But if they actually became a family, like they actually got together, they became a real couple, he could take his helmet off in her presence. That'd also be another convenient way for her to rule over Mandalore without having to kill him or beat the crap out of him to take the Darksaber from him. The other funny thing here too is you kind of pick up this motherly energy coming from her. Like, she's just much more careful when she's talking to Grogu. I know you're afraid, but you have to help lead me. She just seems like she's being so much nicer to Grogu. Taking a little field trip with Space Mom to go help Space Dad. They give her a couple action scenes in the episode just to show you how badass she is, what her fighting skills are like. During her first fight against the Alamites, they show you that she has most of the same traditional weapons that Mando has, that all Mandalorians have. She also has an energy shield, kind of like Paz Vizsla, the heavy infantryman, Jon Favreau's character. We find out the cybernetic creature is trying to suck out all Mando's juices. It probably does that with the other Alamites or any other living creatures that it can trap, just to take its juices, because that's how it survives. And Bo Katan winds up using the Darksaber to kill it. And notice how it's not heavy in her hands, like she seems like she wields it with great skill. That's because according to what the armorer told Mando about how you wield the Darksaber, she has no doubt in her mind about her purpose when she's wielding it. She feels very confident in herself, just in general, and her mission, what she's doing right here, in her purpose. The reason why Mando has been having so much trouble, why it's so heavy in his hands, is because there's so much doubt in his heart. She winds up taking out the spider droid a couple times, like it escapes the first time and makes it into the larger body of the spider droid, and she takes it out with the Darksaber again, easily. I think this is also a reference to how Moff Gideon took the Darksaber from her. Like, how did Moff Gideon get it? He would have had to steal it from her or win it in combat, and I don't think that he has the skill to actually beat her in single combat. So that means he probably took it from her with a bunch of stormtroopers. The whole joke with the Pog soup, like she says, I can't believe you of all people have never had this. It's meant to be a traditional Mandalorian dish that they've consumed, that all Mandalorian children have consumed for thousands of years. Like, it's a very old dish. And the whole joke with her making fun of him is because his whole thing is being a hardcore Mandalorian following all their customs to the letter. But yet he's never been to the planet Mandalore, like their ancestral homeworld, and he's never had their most traditional dish. Which he then gives to Grogu to finish off because, one, Grogu is always hungry, and because, as Bo Katan says, all Mandalorian children are raised on it, and Mando is raising young Grogu like his son, but raising him to be ... a Mandalorian. Earlier in the episode, he had this big conversation with Grogu, teaching him the Mandalorian ways of navigation. Yet more references to the idea that Grogu will eventually take the creed and traditionally become a Mandalorian. They have an argument about the merits of Mandalorian customs, the creed itself, with Bo Katan not believing in a lot of the traditions. It's just meant to set up the big twist with the Mythosaur at the end of the episode. Like, I don't believe in any of this hooey. It's like Han Solo making fun of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker believing in the Force and the Jedi's customs during A New Hope, but then learning that it was all true, it's all real. Bo Katan has the same arc in the episode, like this is all nothing, it doesn't mean anything. Cut to the end of the episode when she's like, holy crap, it was all true. When they're walking through the ruins of the lower part of the city, she starts talking about the history of their people, the history of her family ruling over Mandalore. When she says the Empire wanted to punish them, that's because Bo Katan, when she was leading the Mandalorians during the original trilogy, wouldn't capitulate to the Emperor, serve him like the Mandalorians wouldn't become part of his army with the other stormtroopers and give him their superior weapons and Beskar technology. When she talks about how the different warring factions of Mandalorians weaken their people, that's another reference to the wars between their different clans. In the clan that Mando comes from, the Armorer's clan, the Watch, fighting with the regular Mandalorians and being exiled to the moon of Concordia, implying that had that not happened, their people would have been unified and could have stood against the Empire and prevented the purge from happening in the first place. All this stuff is meant to set up Mando being the person to unite all those different warring factions using the Darksaber and Grogu. She tells him about her upbringing as part of the royal family. She says she took the creed and entered the living waters herself when she was a child, but she always believed the rituals were just for show, didn't actually mean anything. She talks about her father, like I said, it's the first time in Star Wars that they've ever referenced Satine and her father. Remember, Satine was her older sister. I think we're actually going to get some Mandalorian flashbacks to before the Purge and maybe even ancient Mandalore as well. Maybe they'll show us a younger version of her character and her father, or maybe Satine. We'll just see some older flashbacks to Mandalore before things turn to crap. You also notice the look on her face when Mando honors her father when she says, oh, he died protecting his people, which is a reference to him dying before the events of the Clone Wars because Satine had started ruling the Mandalorians by the events of the Clone Wars.
He died defending Mandalore.
This is the way.
What are you looking at?
He honors her father by saying this is the way, like it is their way to die in battle for their people, and she's touched by it, like it stops her in her tracks for a second, like, oh crap. They explain the waters here go back to the time of the very first Mandalore, and the cave here where the waters are used to be the lair of a Mythosaur, but until she actually sees the living Mythosaur beneath the waters, she doesn't believe any of that. The whole structure here and the entrance, as well as the inscription on the plaque here, would have been done right after the first Mandalore, like that very first ruler of their people, united their people and created the creed in the first place. He's meant to be the person that started all these traditions that Mando is trying to obey. The plaque reads, "These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalore. According to ancient folklore, the mines were once a Mythosaur lair. Mandalore the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast. It is from these legends that the skull signet was adopted and became the symbol of our planet, the symbol that you see above the armorer's armory." He enters the living waters and recites the same creed that you heard the armorer speaking with that little kid taking the creed in episode 1. And as he enters the waters more deeply, he's pulled underwater by the Mythosaur, it's implied, and Bo Katan jumps in to save him, also bathing in the living waters again, like rechristening herself a Mandalorian again. And as she drags him out, she sees the living Mythosaur blink its eye at her, making her believe all the legends. Like, this is the beginning of her arc, culminating like, oh wow, everything that they said about all this stuff, it's all true. Even though they end on a cliffhanger, the whole idea here is that Mando said that he would bring the armorer back evidence that he had entered the living waters, so probably, early theory, he'll either bring back a piece of the Mythosaur, like a horn or a claw or a scale or something like that, or he'll bring back a Mythosaur egg. In early theory, we might get Mando during the Mandalorian series riding this Mythosaur with Grogu at some point. Because remember, he's meant to be a parallel for the original Mandalore who has supposedly tamed this Mythosaur that lived here, or one of the Mythosaurs that lived here. It depends on how long Mythosaurs live. I'm assuming that this Mythosaur is actually the descendant of the one that was ridden by the ancient Mandalore, just because he lived many thousands of years ago. Even Yoda's species, like Grogu's race, doesn't live nearly that long. But think about how cool it would be. You see Boba Fett riding the Rancor like he has his new pet Rancor. Wouldn't it be awesome for Mando to ride a Mythosaur? Because that's the whole thing that they referenced back at the beginning of the series.
You are a Mandalorian. Your ancestors rode the great Mythosaur.
They specifically referenced that during Season 1. So why not pay that off by having Mando ride an actual Mythosaur with Grogu, who is also going to become a Mandalorian? That's like the most Mandalorian thing you could possibly do. Wield the Darksaber, become a Jedi, become a Mandalorian Jedi, and ride a Mythosaur. Grogu would be like peak Mandalorian. Superior Mandalorian. So let me know in the comments, what do you think that Mando is going to bring back to prove evidence that this all happened? Like, probably something to do with the Mythosaur itself. If you spotted any other Easter eggs and references that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments, and I'll do an episode 3 trailer video tomorrow. There's so much to talk about. My full episode 3 video will also post next week after they release it. Everyone click here, I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my Mandalorian videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and this is the way.